Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Anasa. How are y'all doing this morning? Okay, good, good. So let's meditate. Does it help when I tell you when to move to each chakra? Okay, okay, so we'll do that again. We'll use the Om sound as the centerpiece for our meditation and do 9 Om breaths into each energy center. But so you don't have to count, I'll call out when to move. So in case we lose ourselves, we can get back on track. It does seem a time that it's really easy to lose ourselves and helpful to get back on track. So let's get started. Take your attention into the tip of your tailbone, right where your seat meets your chair. And move your attention from the tip of the tailbone slightly forward, and that gets you into the central channel. So we'll do 9 breaths into each energy center. And as you hold your attention in the energy center, feel for some expansion and the space between the breaths, which is our connection to divine potency. So we'll start at the just in front of the tip of the tailbone.
Not getting any sound. This is not, it's not a good way to get into a meeting, but it's through the browser.
Moving to the center just below the belly button. Doing the Om 9 times, concentrating on the space between the breaths. moving to the solar plexus. Moving to the heart center. Moving to the throat center. Moving to the third eye. The energy center at the top of the head. Gently, as you're ready, holding to this sacred space inside yourself. Gently allow your eyes to open while you still keep your awareness inside. Or let's just say it, keep your awareness in sacred space as you open your eyes. That makes more sense. So how may we serve this morning? We imagine it's fairly intense right now as the solar eclipse winds up and we're moving into a new moon eclipse on the 2nd of October. So things get pretty intense internally and externally. You've noticed all the floods and the wars expanding, chaos in the environment. And so this is part of what happens during eclipse season as the intensity ramps up all over the planet, inside and outside. And the best thing to do during these phases is internal work. Because if we react to all the stimulation on the outside, we just become part of the chaos and we embody that. But if we stay in sacred space within ourselves, we become a focal point of sacred space that is available to other beings in sacred space, which creates a web of connection for all of humanity. So if you have that context for doing your practice and connecting to the whole, you can begin to understand how important our inner work is, not just for us, but in connecting to this sacred space, we are part of something much, much greater that needs to be a primary focus for us, especially at these times when chaos is the norm. And of course, we understand that we are blessed and fortunate to have the opportunity to do this. Many people who, 3 days ago, their life was different. And now they might, be flooded and out of a house and be in total chaos through no fault of their own. Same with those in countries that are being bombed at the moment for no reason. War doesn't solve anything. It just creates more chaos. But the reason the war is there is because humanity as a whole has yet to choose peace. It's a choice. We always have a choice. And so our choice is to live in peace within ourselves and to recreate that state as often as possible until that is where we live from. Sacred space. And we become sacred space. And part of the web of sacred space that is gifted to us as we practice longer and deeper over time. That's how it is for most people. For some people, they connect and they're just there. But it's our understanding that probably they've done the work in previous lifetimes and came here to help others do that work. But regardless of how much work we have to do to discover that connection and gradually immerse ourselves in that sacred space until we are that always. That's why we gather together and support each other. And to a certain extent, receive the transmission of the sacred space from Anasa. Anasa is like a touchstone, and the temple is a place we can go to renew ourselves and those we share our lives with, and continuously heal ourselves into love. But love is not the exact right word because it means so many things in our culture. And our language cannot contain the experience of sacred space. Even calling it that limits it because it's not space, it's potency, but it's potency in space. So there's no separation. But there's also no Pollyanna or goody two shoes in that space. It is powerful. And real. It's contact with ultimate reality that we're talking about, that which powers the cosmos, which is beyond our imagination. And so our job in this is to understand that our matrix of belief creates a huge limitation in our capacity to understand cosmic reality. Which is founded in this divine power of sacred space, from which everything that is alive arises. And we can't convey to you what that means, everything that is alive, because your matrix of belief and linear concept of reality is too limited to contain at this moment the principles we're talking about. However, all that's required is knowing that there is sacred space and repeatedly immersing yourself in it until you become one with it. And it's always there inside you. It always has been, or you wouldn't be alive. So now we're going to take questions or whatever you'd like to offer this morning. How may we serve? Yes.
We had an interesting thing happen yesterday. I checked in with my bank as I do once a week just to look at the balances and saw that there had been an electronic withdrawal from our account or from our checking account for $2,500 that I didn't recognize. And anyway, I called the bank and they said, okay, you better get down here. And so we had to arranged to close the account because somebody had hacked it and open up a new account, and they would even they got it covered. They'll even replace the missing money. But the downside is I've been using that account for 30 years, and I've got to contact Social Security and my everybody that I
Yes.
deal with, and change the account numbers, and I don't even know how to do that. I suppose Social Security is the easiest, but anyway, so the whole thing about that is, as I'm dealing with, oh God, what a hassle, I get a tap on my shoulder, and it's a reminder from my past. I was a fan student of Carlos Castaneda, and one of his things is, anytime you feel yourself getting upset, he says, use your death as an advisor, and turn to your death and say, uh, are you there? And your death will say, I haven't touched you yet. And I realized that there are not bombs falling on my head. The roof of my house is sturdy. Uh, it keeps the rain off. And we went out to dinner and had a lovely time, and went shopping afterwards, and said, it's wonderful living in the first world where bombs aren't falling on your head. And thank you. Anyway, life goes on.
Yes. And for the people who are in the midst of tragedy, life also goes on. It's not so easy. Not so easy, but it does go on. And that's all we're going to say for now. It's chaos out there. Yes. I can't hear you. Uh, did you unmute?
I can do them too.
Brenda's trying to unmute you too.
I just sent them an ask.
Oh, can you do it?
It only allows me to ask them.
Oh, she can only ask you to do it.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
clicking on it.
she's getting it. Yeah,
There we go.
you got it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
I'm new here. I'm
Welcome.
suffering. I'm suffering with grief. I lost my wife of 20 years 1 month ago, and luckily I have friends who have rallied and have come stayed with me, including my friend here, who's I've known for 50 years, and they come and stay for a week or so, and it takes my mind off of things. But when they're gone, it's very hard to not. It's very hard. It's very lonely.
Yes.
It's like a dark loneliness. I don't understand why she's gone.
Well, grief
Thank you.
is the glove that when someone dies, it's the love that you felt during the life. When someone dies, the glove comes off and turns inside out and turns into grief. So what you're feeling is the depth of the love that you were blessed with for 20 years. And now the glove has gone inside out and you're in the grief. The grief is still love. The grief is the testament to the power of the love. And in our practice, we talk about all parts are welcome. You know, everything has a time and a season and a place. And grief is incredibly painful. It's one of the most painful things, maybe the most painful thing we experience as human beings, because we experience it as the loss of that love. What happens over time for people who have an inner practice is that they begin to understand that that love never dies. That even though the being you were close to is no longer on this material plane, that love has not died. And as you pass through the sharpness of the wound that you're in this time, it's so raw and so present. And you're right, you can be distracted by friends, but it doesn't really go away. You can just be distracted for a while and know that love exists somewhere because you experience it in being with your friends. But when you have the understanding that the love never dies, that is, the love you have cultivated is a living force that is actually available for you to communicate through. As you feel for that love and that capacity to love in yourself, the connection to the person who has passed on can be reinvigorated, not in the way that we expect in physical form, but there can be a communication that happens through synchronicity in ourselves as we become more and more aligned and attuned to that sacred space in ourselves. We can experience the love that we have shared that has passed on. That has not died. The physical body has died. The love has not. And as we feel deeper and deeper and allow that grief to dig its deep furrow in us, it gives us a deeper access to these other planes of awareness. And in understanding that love doesn't die, that's where the word faith comes in, because that's not your experience at this moment, but you know enough that you can feel the truth of what we're saying, even though that's not your current experience. because you've accumulated enough life experience and experience with sacred space itself that you can tell we're telling the truth. So the way to access that love is to allow the grief to create a channel to that love. So we don't push the grief away. We don't exactly live from it. We just allow it to do its work, knowing that it is taking us to the love itself, which has not died. But we can feel the power of that love in the power of our grief, which actually over time will return us to the experience of that love, but in a different dimension. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. It makes sense, but it doesn't.
It doesn't make it any easier, and it doesn't make the feelings any less.
Exactly.
Yes, we understand that. But we think that the faith that what we're telling you is true can give you it's like having a cane to walk after you've had surgery. It gives you the strength to continue in your inner work, knowing that over time it will shift. And we understand that every time you open inside, it's so painful that it's almost impossible.
I'm afraid to be alone.
Allow yourself to be in that fear when you're alone. Our all parts are welcome extends to every feeling that we have. And in allowing our feelings, we begin to understand that the overwhelm that we fear doesn't happen. We allow our feelings, and in allowing our feelings, they begin to shift. And when we get into the practice of all parts are welcome, and everything that's happening is happening to guide our practice, our inner practice, ever deeper, we use it as fuel to discover that which, see, if we could only learn about love from positive experience, then these experiences wouldn't have so much value. But we're all old enough to know that the things that really shaped our inner awareness are these outer traumas that come to us, that in experiencing a life of love for 20 years with one person, when that suddenly changes, we would never choose that experience out of curiosity. Curiosity isn't enough we would never choose that experience for any reason. And yet that experience is going to teach you, or is teaching you, you're in process of learning, that some of the assumptions that you made your whole life aren't true. And that realization in allowing yourself to change, to allow the understanding that this new pain has brought, it will change you forever in very, very good ways, because you will understand that grief is love turned inside out. That understanding does not make it any less painful for 1 second, but it gives you a context for life as a journey rather than an endurance contest. But as a journey of growth and development and evolution. And it's not different from, bombs falling and rivers taking away your house. I mean, we have these experiences to bring ourselves deeper into connection with sacred space, the entrance into the all of the all that is the source of every experience. We know this doesn't make it less painful, but the understanding can be helpful. There's also a practice that we teach called going to the Anasa temple, which is a very sacred space. And we don't quite have the right, it's not the right time for us to go through that practice, but it's online, and I think labeled as such, and easy to get to. It's not complicated. Carol knows it well. She can also tell you how to get there. But in going to the Anasa temple, you can be in sacred space and ask to be healed. And in that healing, which of course is total love, you can be shown that love and grief are the same, just one turned inside out. And that's not to minimize the pain. It's unbelievable pain because it was unbelievable love.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. We're with you in this.
I can feel it.
It takes great courage to stay present through this kind of pain. We admire you for being here and speaking of it. It's a very brave thing to do in just a month. It's such a cataclysmic transformation that you're undergoing. And we can explain it also as, you've been dumped into the chrysalis of chaos as you're being remade. This is a death rebirth experience for you, even though you weren't the one who passed from this realm. You're having a death and rebirth experience in this period. And there's nothing, you could run from it. Lots of people do with drugs or alcohol or other choices to numb the pain. But in choosing to allow the pain and allow the change to take place in its own way, you have no idea where it's taking you in yourself, but allowing it and, in a sense, welcoming the transformation, even though it's nothing you would choose. You're here. And it's going to make you a deeper, finer person. None of that makes the pain any less. In some ways, it makes it worse because you're actually allowing yourself to feel it. But when you understand that it's transformation, that God has come to you to show you the power of your love, you can allow yourself to be transformed. And seek the balm of love in the Inasa temple and in those around you, allowing yourself to feel what they're offering. So that it becomes a communion rather than a distraction. This is how the love is deepening for you.
Can we pick another subject?
Sorry?
Can we pick another subject?
Sure. We'll take the heat off.
Thanks.
Just another word of admiration, and we'll move on. So, eclipse. We're all in the eclipse. And so each one of us is having transformation in different and more and less powerful ways as this happens. And again, we're going to reiterate that eclipses are a time to deepen our inner practice. Both as a protection from the chaos that is inevitable with this season, and as an opportunity to use the intensity of the available energy to energize our deep work. Yes.
Everything that's been shared this morning has been astoundingly poignant for me. I was going to ask earlier just to speak about transition or not losing your sense of self through large changes in your life, be it self-imposed change or environmental change, which can be more disruptive. But I guess my ask is to speak about maintaining and perhaps allowing it to develop that sense of self as you enter into these chapters of big change. Whatever the catalyst of that may have been. Yeah.
So the question is really on point. It's like, how do we maintain our connection to self with a capital S as we go through major change? So we say that self with a capital S as a reference to self with a small s, which is us without connection to sacred space. We've called it sacred space, personal divinity, ultimate reality, source energy. We use all this language to try to point to something that is beyond ordinary experience, but completely available to all of us at any time because it's what we're made of, essentially. And so this is the capital S self, which is our connection to divine, to divinity itself, which is the energy source which powers everything that lives. So how to stay connected to that when we're going through chaotic transformation is really the question. And the truth is that we're mostly going through chaotic transformation, but usually it's in a level that we don't really feel it disturbing our external lives, so we live someplace other than where that's happening in ourselves. We can sort of ignore it or push it away, or, you know, this is where we get into the questions about spiritual bypass or really embracing our work. You know, also the difference between transcendence and transformation, which we've been talking a lot about recently. So the main thing is to set aside a part of every day to truly contact that deepest part of ourselves. And the Om sound is a good way to do it, because it when we first taught it, it's a way to experience our central channel very quickly without a lot of complication. And the way we first taught it is to actually sing it. And so as you sing it, you start at the tip of the tailbone, and it's 3 syllables actually. O, ah, and And so as the sound rises, it changes in its context. And I'm not sure that the microphone picks it up clearly, but we hope it does. So we'll just demonstrate 3 times. Oh. 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 So you'll notice as we did that, or we'll explain what Rebecca felt as that happened. It was the small s self that started. And gradually, with each repetition, the big S was more present, the capital S. So that's a demonstration of what allowing feels like in our practice. It's not that we do anything exactly. We become ourselves. And that contact makes it possible. And practicing the Om sound is a good practice. Whether we are vibrating it inside ourselves without articulating it through our voice, or using the voice to feel it in a different way, it's always available to us and doesn't require any further information to cultivate that experience. So that's the simplest way in we can give you this morning to center yourself whenever things get. And you can do that same vibration inside yourself without making the sound. But the purpose of the sound and the reason that it gets so nasally and intense and, kind of feels a little bit internally like a drill bit going through your head, it's that intensity creating an internal reorganization in an immediate way. And it's this that we want our lives to become. So whenever we get a little bit off center, it's a good way to just get back into contact immediately. You don't have to think anything. You don't have to say a complicated mantra. You don't have to believe anything. You just use the frequencies to reawaken yourself in the moment. You're welcome. Thanks for the question. Yes.
So, since we've been doing the meditation with the ohms, it's come back into my life more. And just as you were saying, I have noticed over the past few years the constant chatter of thoughts, and especially if things are not going pleasantly. And the ohm sound clears them away and opens up the space, even if it's only for a moment. It gives me a resting place, because the thoughts, as we near our death, there's a lot of thoughts that come in. I mean, there's the practical things about getting your will together and blah, blah, blah. But then there's also the fear I have of being alone after almost 60 years. That is, I don't even have a word for it, but it's really scary. And if I let my thoughts, they're like little children. They're going, what do we do? What do we do? And the the thing that has been working for me, I'll be out in the garden and they'll start chattering, and I'll say the Om, and it opens, it lets me rest. It calms the thoughts down. And like I say, they're like little children. And I don't smack little children. I don't throw them out of the house, but I want them to shush, and but in a really gentle, loving way. I hear you. I understand. You're afraid, but you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how it is going to be. And so don't be making up stuff that scares you, you know. Um, anyway, so thank you so much for introducing the Om sound back into my life. I really appreciate it. And there's so many other things that what you've said has triggered: the transformation and transcendence thing, the spiritual bypass. I brought that question, what do I need to see about myself? Because of course, it's in my blind spot. Otherwise, I would have been handling it already. And I took it to the Inasa temple, and I got a really clear answer. Like, here's three things. And they're not very flattering. I'm kind of embarrassed to be talking about them, but I recognize them. And I said, "Oh my goodness, no wonder people are a little annoyed with me a lot of times." And you know, I'm not expressing love in the way that I wish a lot of the time. Um, so I also don't know how to. I'm not eradicating them. I know those qualities are mine in a way, and they're also just human in a way. So I'm leaving it up to my higher power to be handling this, and you know, sort of approaching it with a smile at the Inasa temple. That it's kind of like that. Like, if that's not scary to know about yourself, it's not good, but it's also not um a reason to kill yourself or whatever, hurt yourself about it. Anyway, so that's just a report, and thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you for your report. And, sometimes you can short circuit those thoughts with gratitude for what you have instead of fear of the future. We'll just say that came through as you were speaking to us. And that embarrassment is a sign of good work. and 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 really, it's such a useful emotion to catapult us toward change that we can see is usually fairly simple to implement. So we're
That'd be great.
delighted. Thank you for the report. We're delighted with that. Yeah.
I just wanted to also add, because I'm really feeling, remembering the grief process. And the ones that I remember, I've already experienced, and am sort of what I have been changed because of them, and in some ways necessary change that I wouldn't have even attempted otherwise. I wouldn't have even known about otherwise. And anyway, but I do feel the I can empathize with the grief. And as you know, our mother died a while ago now. And I wasn't really present for like the memorial and uh, the the normal reactions that a person would have. I don't know if I had, but at the Anasa temple, I felt I communicated with my mom, and really I got more of her experience than I had ever had when she was alive. It was like she was revealing things, and my love for her is so present now that I'll do something that she would do or recognize, or anyway, some sort of connection, and I'll just be so grateful and just say, I love you, Mom. And I don't know, I feel even closer to her in some way. It's not in physical form, of course, but it is more encompassing than the daily life encounters that we would have, especially as she was getting dementia. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I, I know that that love lives on,
Thank, thank you for
from
that.
personal experience.
Thank you for that. So we can handle one more report before we go into meditation if anyone else wants to speak. It's not required, but hi.
Hello. Well, thank you for this lovely transformative group and what you're bringing through. It's just wonderful, and I feel just so inspired. I feel my heart come back on board, and weekly, and even more so, of course. And I will be thinking of you
Oh,
this
thank you.
next week. And
Oh, yeah. So time for
Yes.
true confessions. We're having surgery on Wednesday, and uh it's closer to a minor surgery than a major surgery, but not nothing. Well, probably it's a parathyroids are very tiny glands that there are four of them under the thyroid, and one of ours is out of control, possibly more. So they'll all be visualized and at least one taken out. And it's sort of what we know is it's a 2-hour procedure. It will happen on Wednesday, and probably we won't be back next Sunday, but I think 2 Sundays from now, hopefully we'll be speaking normally by then. The major side effect of the surgery is not pain, it's that you can lose your voice for some time. So that's happening. And we know it's going to be a big shift in our chemistry. We can feel it. It's going to be definitely a good thing. Our energy will come back, and uh well, physical life will be much better. So just letting you know that's happening, and we'll of course be thinking of you, especially next Sunday, since it's so unusual for us to miss. But wishing you all well, so grateful that you've come today, and let's meditate for a few minutes, be together. And not last but not least, thank you for all your good wishes and support as we go through this. So we'll do an unguided meditation, whatever feels right for you and your connection in this moment, we honor. Thank you so much for being here today. It's been a joy and a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much. Till we meet again.